Hi, everybody, and welcome back to episode 4 of Messages from Spirit podcast. And today we're going to actually dive into a different book. It's called A Course in Miracles. So if you've heard of it, you'll know. It is a pretty in-depth spiritual text. So we will be reading it, but then we'll go into like what the messages are specifically trying to say, because they're a little bit, you have to look into them a little bit more and evaluate. And then I'm actually going to go into some tarot as well. So look at some tarot messages today. And I'm working with this book called Guided Tarot for Seamless Readings by Stephanie Caponi. So this is a really awesome book if you're learning tarot and want to kind of know about the astrology behind each card, the symbolism behind each card. This is a really amazing book. It's available on Amazon as well. So let's grab a tea and dive in. All right, so today I want to begin with the Course in Miracles. And so if you have dove into this book, you'll know it is pretty thick text. It's pretty in-depth. And there's also a lot of practices to do in the book as well. So if you're looking for a really good text to guide you into like helping you awaken, helping you open your third eye to see life from a new perspective, this is the book that I recommend. And it does say on the first page that this is a required text for spiritual awakening. This is a book that I started reading because one of my mentors at the time, Gabby Bernstein, was talking about it and was guided to it, as well as one of my teachers, Marianne Williamson, as well. She is an amazing, amazing speaker if you're looking for somebody to really dive into the Course in Miracles all the time on a consistent basis. She really talks about it, and she has been channeling messages through this book, through this text for decades. So look into her if you're looking to work with this type of messaging. Again, it is very kind of advanced when you're reading it because you have to be able to evaluate and resonate with specific messages in it. So it's something that I like to share and kind of simplify a little bit for people so that you can apply the messages. So we'll look into that and see what's coming up for us today. Astrologically, I believe the moon is now in Aquarius today. So today is March 7th, 2024. So Aquarius, moon is in Aquarius today. So there's a lot, again, more energy moving. The last episode I did, the moon was in Sagittarius. So energy is starting to move. And if you know anything about Aquarius is all about thinking outside the box, doing things in a different way, helping you to evolve and change your perception, and also being okay with discomfort, because it challenges us to live our life in these ways that we're not privy to, that we actually don't know what's going to happen, right? Even specifically enough to the point where it's like, okay, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it because it's teaching me something. And when I do it, I'm actually showing the universe that I'm trusting, right? It might be something that you don't want to do, but it's something that's going to teach you. So it's kind of like this dance, because we still have to rely on our gut instinct and our intuition in order to go to that place and trust. But like, you don't want to do things that are absolutely not resonating with you at all. But if you kind of know, okay, yeah, this is probably something that I should do, that's the Aquarius energy. Same with Capricorn energy. It's more of a masculine energy. It's trying to push you into a space of discomfort and into those moments of, I should do this. So there's a time and place for those shoulds, right? You could do it, you could not do it, but really the divine masculine is telling you, you should do this, because if you do it, you'll be able to go ahead and do A, B, and C, right? All right, so we're going to go into A Course in Miracles. So if you just want to take kind of a breath with me, let's take a nice deep breath together. And close your eyes. And I will do my bibliotext spell. All All right, so today we're on page 455. The fear to look within. The Holy Spirit will never teach you that you are sinful. Errors he will correct, but this makes no one fearful. You are indeed afraid to look within and see the sin you think is there. This you would not be fearful to admit. Fear in association with sin, the ego deems quite appropriate and smiles approvingly. It has no fear to let you feel ashamed. It doubts not your belief and faith in sin. Its temples do not shake because of this. Your faith that sin is there, but witnesses to your desire that it be there to see. So this paragraph's basically saying your subscription and your belief in fear, you have no problem in believing. You have no problem in subscribing to the idea that sin is real and that fear is real, right? But Spirit asks us and is actually telling us fear is an illusion. It's a construct. It's a perception. And it's something that we as humans prescribe to because our society is created around fear, right? Do's and don'ts. You don't do this, you do that. To be a good person, you do this. To be a bad person, you do this. If you've done this, you're a bad person, and that means that you should feel guilt and shame. So we subscribe to that. And because we subscribe to guilt and shame, we also believe that people deserve to be punished and that they do not deserve forgiveness. We believe that, and we have no problem believing that. But why do we have a problem subscribing to forgiveness? Why do we feel that forgiveness and love and unconditional love is not something that we can believe in or subscribe to? This merely seems to be the source of fear. Remember that the ego is not alone. Its rule is tempered, and its unknown enemy, whom it cannot even see, it fears. So we are subscribing to something that we don't even see. We can't see it. We don't know it. Like the future, right? The things that we feel are in the future of punishment or being ostracized or feared or punished for or judged for, we believe, right? It's like saying 90% of our worries don't come true, but we still worry and we still subscribe to our worries and our fears because our ego is tempered, and its unknown enemy we cannot even see. It fears that. Our ego is constantly on the lookout for things that can kill it. And so it is loud. It's loud. It's small, but it's loud, and that's why we subscribe to its stories. Loudly, the ego tells you not to look inward. For if you do, your eyes will light on sin, and God will strike you blind. This you believe, and so you do not look. Yet this is not the ego's hidden fear, nor yours who serve it. Loudly, indeed, the ego claims it is, too loudly and too often. For underneath this constant shout and frantic proclamation, the ego is not certain that it is so. Beneath your fear to look within, because of sin, is yet another fear, and one which makes the ego tremble. So you'll hear this a lot actually in religion, right? So Buddhist nature, mainly Buddhism, they'll say, when you meditate, you should focus on a deity, or you should focus on something, because if you don't focus on a specific energy, it's like you're opening up your mind to bad energy, fearful energy, like demon energy or something. Like anything could come in if you're not focused on one thing. Well, this idea and this belief is based on fear. It's again based on fear, right? Don't do that. Don't go inwards and allow anything to come into your mind, because that you should be fearful of that. And that's exactly how the ego works. The ego doesn't want you to go inwards and discover something else other than the ego, because the ego lives in the body, and if the body dies, the ego dies. forever. The spirit will never die. The spirit will go on, and it knows that it is untouchable. It will always remain. So there's no fear when we are in the energy of spirit. But when we're in the energy of the mind, the intellect, and the ego, there is a lot to fear, because there is a lot that can harm the ego. So the ego doesn't want you to go outside of its belief system, because then there is a chance of its vulnerability to be crushed. And that's why a lot of people do plant medicine, because the plant medicine will actually override that fear. It will take over you. You will have no choice but to surrender to the medicine. And so spirit will actually be able to speak, and the ego will go through an ego death. You will go through multiple ego deaths. The more you meditate, the more you do plant medicine, and become humbled. So the ego never wants to become humbled. That is an ego death of sorts. It separates you from your identity. It makes you, it's like crashing a mirror and awakening you to the truth of who you are. And so it also makes you understand that the ego is such a small, tiny speck of sand. It doesn't have any power, right? It's loud, but it doesn't have power unless you give it power. And so that's what this is really talking about. Loudly, indeed, the ego claims that it is. Too loudly and too often, it claims that you should never go inwards, because God will strike you blind, and it will shed light on your sin. It will shed light on the parts of you that you deny. It will shed light on the parts of you that you deem sinful. And so you don't want to see those parts of yourself. You don't want to admit those parts to yourself, because then the ego will have to die, and you will have to be humbled. And a lot of us aren't willing to feel that humbleness. A lot of us aren't willing to go into that area of ourselves that will embarrass us or make us truly see, oh yeah, I have something to work on, or I have these demons, right? But spirit is saying, like, this is okay to go to those places. What if you looked within and saw no sin? This fearful question is one the ego never asks. And you who ask it now are threatening the ego's whole defensive system too seriously for it to bother to pretend that it is your friend. Those who have joined their brothers have detached themselves from their belief that their identity lies in ego. A holy relationship is one in which you join with what is part of you in truth, and your belief in sin has been already shaken, nor are you now entirely unwilling to look within and see it not. So it's like, even if you feel like there's these areas of yourself that you deny or that you don't want to look at, why do you believe that you're not capable of forgiving those areas of yourself? Why do you believe that you're not capable of accepting those areas of yourself? Because spirit accepts that. Spirit is unconditional. God is unconditional. Jesus is unconditional. There's so much energy within us and around us that is unconditional. You will be forgiven again and again and again, no matter what you do or what you've done in the past, as long as you're willing to see it for what it is, as long as you're willing to accept it for what it is, instead of deeming it a sin. Once we see something as a sin or bad or fearful, we are way less likely to accept it and heal it, right? Healing is all about acceptance and embracing. So your liberation still is only partial, still limited and incomplete, yet born within you. Not wholly mad, you have been willing to look on much of your insanity and recognize its madness. Your faith is moving inward, past insanity and on to reason. And what your reason tells you now, the ego would not hear. The Holy Spirit's purpose was accepted by the part of your mind the ego knows not of. No more did you. And yet, this part with which you now identify is not afraid to look upon itself. It knows no sin, How, otherwise, could it have been willing to see the Holy Spirit's purpose as its own? This part has seen your brother and recognized him perfectly since time began, and it desired nothing but to join with him and to be free again as once it was. It has been waiting for the birth of freedom, the acceptance of release to come to you. And now you recognize that it was not the ego that joined the Holy Spirit's purpose, and so there must be something else. Think not that this is madness, for this your reason tells you, and it follows perfectly from what you have already learned. There is no inconsistency in what the Holy Spirit teaches. This is the reasoning of the sane. You have perceived the ego's madness and not been made afraid because you did not choose to share in it. At times it still deceives you. Yet in your saner moments, its ranting strikes no terror in your heart. For you have realized that all the gifts it would withdraw from you in rage at your presumptuous wish to look within, you do not want. A few remaining trinkets still seem to shine and catch your eye, yet you would not sell heaven to have them. And now the ego is afraid, yet it hears in terror. The other part hears as the sweetest music, the song it longed to hear since first the ego came into your mind. The ego's weakness is its strength, the song of freedom, which sings the praises of another world, brings to it hope of peace, for it remembers heaven. And now it sees that heaven has come to earth at last, from which the ego's rule has kept it out so long. Heaven has come because it found a home in your relationship on earth. And earth can hold no longer what it has been given, heaven as its own. Look gently on your brother and remember the ego's weakness is revealed in both your sight. What it would keep apart has met and joined and looks upon the ego unafraid. Little child, innocent of sin, follow in gladness the way to certainty. Be not held back by fear's insane insistence that sureness lies in doubt. This has no meaning. What matters it to you, how loudly it is proclaimed? The senseless is not made meaningful by repetition and by clamor. The quiet way is open. Follow it happily and question not what must be so.